This is Leaders in the Trenches, and your host today is Gene Hammett.
Hi, my name is Gene Hammett. I'm the host of Leaders in the Trenches. My question for you today is, what happens after your company grows so fast that you must really put some changes into operations? So, in other words, how do you operate for more growth? I have not had that much experience in this area, I'll be honest with you, because I was the leader of a fast-growing company. We got to about 5 million. We only had like 8, 9 employees at the time. We scaled up and down depending on seasonality. So we got up to 15 at times. So I only led, a handful of people at one time. But companies that are running at this pace of change and the pace of growth, they really have to think differently about their operations. So I went out there to experts, the leaders in the trenches, so to speak, to talk about this. And I found someone very interesting. I love HubSpot. I'm actually a client of theirs. I've used their tool for a little over a year now. I love it. And I really love the company. I've loved the company for a long time because of the content they create, because I know how important it is. The funny thing about the way they operate and some of the way they actually connect with people is I know every time I fill out a form on HubSpot for a white paper, for something that I want to download, within about 2 hours, I'm going to get a call from one of their inside sales reps, just checking to see if I got it, see if I had any questions, and seeing if they can further that relationship. I think it's amazing. I love the company, and so I wanted to have someone on that could really talk about how do you operate around hypergrowth. So if you don't know who HubSpot is, they're a software company. They create marketing and sales solutions in the marketplace. 2011, they were the second fastest software company. So that was many, many years ago. And now they've gone public. They've continued to keep their culture really tight fit. They're one of the best places to work. And I wanted to talk to one of their inside leaders. Michael Redbord is someone that I had never heard of, but I was connected through my network. You got to know this guy. He thinks differently about operations. So this interview is all about the operations for growth. All right. So here's Michael. Hey, how are you?
Hey, Gene, I'm doing great. How are you?
Michael, thanks for being here. I just asked you this amazing question, which was, I've told the audience a little bit about you and your background and a little bit about the company you work for, HubSpot, but I'd love for them to hear about your journey here and about who you serve right now.
Yeah, so HubSpot works with small and medium-sized businesses, and really, our mission is to help you grow better, right? And what I do at HubSpot is I'm in charge of one of our product lines that has to do with growing better really through service and serving your customers better. But I've been at HubSpot for a while, and I've seen a lot of growth here, and I'm excited to talk about that journey with you today, Gene.
Well, HubSpot is a company that I've admired for a long time. They have a huge following, work with a lot of corporate brands, and they're doing some great stuff on the marketing side, the sales side. I'm actually a customer on the sales side.
Thank you.
The CRM, yeah. And when you think about the market today for, let's go with the marketing side, because that's what you're mostly known for. Marketing software is pretty competitive, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it's gotten to be a red ocean over the last decade for sure.
And you guys have created a solution that's got some unique elements to it, and that has caused traction. And I'll go ahead and kick this off. I was telling you this the other day in a pre-call where we were getting to know each other, Michael. When I was looking at my research into hypergrowth companies growing really fast, one of the core elements behind that discipline was radical transparency. And that could mean a lot of things to a lot of people, but when I talked to the founder of HubSpot in some exchange through email about this and how unique it was, he's like, well, this is the core of our business. So, how does radical transparency play out for you guys there in your growth?
There's a few ways that I see it. I think first is we try to be as upfront as we possibly can be with our customers, right? And that actually has a lot of really positive network effects in the market. When people perceive you as authentic, as honest, when you make a mistake and you apologize for it for real, I think that actually has a really nice positive effect, not just to your customers who you talk to, but to the market as a whole. And I think that also in our marketing, we try to share as much as we can. We give a ton away for free. Probably a lot of listeners, you're familiar with HubSpot through the content we give away, and we just try to give as much as we can in as authentic a way, as authentic a tone as we can. I think that's really done a lot, and that helps people see us as a company that is how we are, I think, which is really a pretty radically candorific company.
Well, that's from a customer perspective. What happens internally for radical transparency as it drives growth?
Yeah, that's an awesome question because I think anyone who's really doing radical transparency right, the answer to this question is that it's a little scary internally because everybody knows everything. There's no walls, there's no doors. There's complete level playing field when it comes to data access about the way things work in the business. And what that means is that there's a very intense and sophisticated discussion happening amongst all the employees all at once, which can feel a little chaotic, about everything from business strategy to the way we handle that one support ticket and everything like that. So for us, that manifests itself in like a massive proliferation of information on Slack, real time, and also our internal wiki, which is almost like a kind of internal like content machine where we talk about this stuff to each other. But I think anyone who's doing it right has to answer that question to say it's a little bit scary, it's a little chaotic, but man, I wouldn't have it any other way.
And I've talked about this from the stage a few times, and it is really kind of goes back to the story of many years ago. You guys had a lot of core values that drove the business and to where it is today. But one of the things was kind of up for grabs or in question. When we become a public company, how do we maintain radical transparency with some of this private data and private strategies? And you guys decided to make everyone a designated insider at the time?
Yeah, we made everybody an insider, and that's not something most companies do, right? What it means is that you can share as a public company, right? You're subject to certain regulations, obviously. But what it means when you make everybody an insider is you can share really some forward-looking financial statements with everybody in the company. So a lot of times when a company goes public, and I've lived through this, you go from having these company meetings where the CEO stands up and is able to have a very honest conversation about the business with the employee base, right? And those are great. It's part of what makes a company feel like a family and feel small. Then suddenly one day happens and it's just a random day in October or something and you go public and that all has to change. And what happens when you're an employee at a company like that, and even if you're in middle management or it doesn't have to just be a line employee, is you feel this sea change that suddenly this event happened, I didn't quite understand it, and now I'm not privy to information, a wall just went up. And what we really wanted to do at HubSpot when we went public was avoid that, right? And so what we did is we made everybody an insider, and we were able to keep the same tenor in all of our internal conversations on Slack, on our internal wiki, and in our company meetings, and I think that made the IPO seem like an event in time as opposed to a destination that we then had to start anew from.
Well, I love the fact that you have been able to do that because I think it's a great story to tell because it does scare the hell out of some leaders. And we're probably not saying it's easy and it's all going to be something that you have as a leader, you have to kind of question, what do I say here? But I really appreciate you sharing that with us. Before we talk
I might just add that it means you need to have an incredibly high level of trust between really every person in your organization. And I think, when you read the research about high performing teams, a lot of it is about trust and, psychological security and stuff like that. One way that we've been able to almost garner that, and honestly, it's kind of by accident, but it's been a nice thing, is by kind of sharing this information and knowing that we're all privy to something that other folks don't have, right? And that creates a pretty high level of trust between every employee at the company, and it's something I don't think we would have otherwise.
Well, that's the way I use it inside my speech. It's really around trust.
Yeah.
There's many other values you guys have as a company, and you've been growing so fast. I guess I kind of steered the conversation to radical transparency. Which of the values do you see playing out and we have to keep in check to keep growth going?
So the the document that I think a lot of people are familiar with that HubSpot put out was called our culture code, right? And
Yep.
that was a document that one of our founders, Dharmesh, put out, and it was kind of just like the way that we think about ourselves. I believe he put it out in 2011 or so. And the most important slide in that deck has this acronym on it, SFTC, solve for the customer, right? And that to me is a way that it's a way you make decisions, right? You solve for the customer. If you're thinking in terms of a math problem, you put the customer over on the left side, right? And it's also a way that you sort of just run the business. And the more that we've grown, the more that we've learned that the better you do by your customers, the more that helps your growth. And I think a lot of people know HubSpot as an amazing sales and marketing machine. Our marketing is amazing. If you ever talk to a salesperson, hopefully it was a good experience. But really, it's our customers that drive our growth. And more as we've gotten bigger, it's about word of mouth and the network effects that they create, the reviews that they write us online, all that stuff. And so we found that solving for the customer started as this kind of like slightly fluffy, kind of almost like corporate value, right? But it really turned into a way of doing business that's driven our growth.
And that's the idea of values, is for you to live them every day. And something like that, when it comes to customer service or it comes to marketing or sales, it's real easy to go back to that and go, well, what would solving for the customer mean in relation to this dilemma?
Right.
When you are looking at the growth of the company over time, you said that hasn't always been, the customer has not, it's always been important, but it hasn't always been the most important thing. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I think there's an ebb and flow to that. For any value, for any driving principle, there's some days where it, it's loud and clear, and there's other days where, you really have to struggle to make it reality.
When you think about HubSpot's journey to where they are today, it's impressive. I don't want to say, I know we talked about the revenues the other day. I don't know what I can say publicly.
I think we can say check out the last earnings call, and you'll see there's probably some nice numbers we put up. Yeah.
There's lots of zeros in there. But when you think about growth going forward, Michael, what do you think that you're going to keep doing as a company that makes you continue to grow in a very competitive red ocean space?
Yeah. So we're going to keep doing a lot of the kind of tactics that I think have gotten us here today, but there's probably a few things we're going to change too.
Okay.
So for instance, one thing we're going to do is, like, our blog is an amazing traffic driver and acquisition vehicle for us. It's just like, it gives us the ability to rank for new terms super quickly, and it gives us the ability to pull in traffic on existing terms really well. So when I think about kind of the acquisition part or what we do in marketing, that's just amazing, and it's almost table stakes today to have kind of good thought leadership as a business. And I think we've done a great job. We're going to keep leaning in there. And
let me chime in here. I look at a lot of websites, and I look for content all the time, and I would say that HubSpot is one of the best.
Thank you.
At creating content that is useful, that
Cool.
is something I want to go to as a resource over and over again, and not read once and toss.
I mean, that's been the aim from day one. It's sort of one of the core tenets of inbound marketing, is just be helpful, provide value, right? And don't just write blog posts to rank. The ranking is a nice side effect of creating actual value for your readership, right? And so I think we're absolutely going to keep doing that. And I think about the way that as we kind of move through the process from acquisition, to activation there, and we think about the way that our salespeople interact with folks that kind of enter the ecosystem, right? More and more, what we're seeing is that the values that we took to make that website great, about giving something away that had value, right? And then the positive side effect was a business one. We're thinking about that more and more in a sales strategy. So as we think about moving from marketing to sales, what we're starting to do with our sales team is give away more software for free, right? And we're arming our sales folks with more free tools, and we're giving away more stuff, more tools for free. We're breaking off little pieces of our suite that we think have great value on the marketplace, and our salespeople are now able to walk that same walk that we had in marketing. So it's a nice alignment if you're the person that's actually moving from reading our blog to talking to our salesperson to using our software. And then for our customers, we're thinking a lot more, just we're reading through like our terms of service, and we're thinking about the parts that you don't like, right? Where are the sharp edges in there that as you move through our experience, you're getting your sleeve caught on and are unpleasant. And we're trying our hardest to round those off. And I think as you grow a business, it's very, very tempting to extract value from your customers. And a lot of times that happens through contractual means, through sort of the revenue mechanics, especially in SaaS that drive your growth. I think we've done a pretty good job at HubSpot, but we're certainly not perfect, and I want to make those a lot better as we move forward in time.
Well, I love the fact that you're honest with us on there where you're moving to, and not that I would expect you to shine me on, but knowing that you have even more things to do in the area of serving customers, and that's leading to growth. I love the fact that we talked about that today. When you think about trust inside of the company, and you're looking at growing fast, what are some of the other areas besides radical transparencies that's really driving your success in your market?
Yeah. So I mentioned solving for the customer. I think that's like a massive second one. And I think that as we grow as businesses, we have a tendency to put process over people. And so we've tried very, very hard. I'll use a word here. It's not perfect, but it hopefully gets at what I'm trying to communicate. We tried very, very hard to remain human, right? And in the way that, you interact with our individual people at the company, you don't feel like you're talking to a mega corp, hopefully, right? You feel as though you're getting kind of the straight dope from a person that you talk to. You don't feel like that person is cut off at the knees where every other word out of their mouth is like, well, I have to go talk to finance. I have to talk to my manager, right? We've basically empowered folks and gotten the process out of the way so that our people can be as human as possible when they're working with our customers, who, by the way, are also human, right? And so it's kind of part of solving for the customer, but to me, it's more of a tonal thing in how you sort of message, how you speak, how you think about your interactions with the external world. We want to be as direct and human as we possibly can be.
When we talked earlier, we talked about, kind of how do you think about operating a company for growth? And I know you speak about this, as a brand ambassador for HubSpot. You talked about you got 4 speeches next week or something.
It's going to be a busy week next week. I'm excited. Yeah, it's going to be fun.
What are the core elements of operating a company for growth?
Yeah, so there's a lot of kind of cultural and tonal stuff. We've touched on that actually so far. Let me give you one more sort of business mechanic type thing. We talked before about there's marketing, there's sales, and there's customers, right? And those are kind of 3 key constituencies of your business. And as your prospects move from prospect to lead to customer, they're on that journey. What we found is that 10 years ago when we started HubSpot, the way that you grew was you built an awesome sales and marketing machine, basically this big old megaphone, right? And you poured all your money into it, and it worked because out popped customers, right? And nowadays, I think that there's just been changes in the way that people think about, their lives as consumers and their shopping habits. And in particular, we trust less, right? We no longer look at companies as sources of truth. We're very skeptical. When we talk to a salesperson, we tend to have already Googled everything about that company, and we're pretty well informed. And so trust over the last decade has changed. We're also much less patient, which is culture of immediacy that we have nowadays. And so what we found in all of that is that no longer does just pouring all your money in sales and marketing and being a big megaphone work. What you need to have your customers be additive to your growth. So the business mechanic here that's different is no longer thinking about customers as an output of the growth machine, but thinking about them as an input to some kind of flywheel, right? So every time you add a customer to your business, it actually spins faster, and your customers somehow create network effects that basically positively impact your ability to acquire that next customer. And that's really, really been a big focus of us, I would say, for the last few years. And I think you can expect over the next decade, this is where we're going to invest a ton of our thought, a ton of our energy, really making our business work like a flywheel, not like a funnel.
So when I think about that, and the first 2 things that come to mind are delivery of results and the customer service. It doesn't work the way I expected it to work. I can't get it to work. And I'm sure maybe there's some other components behind that. How do you see the full components of making that work like a flywheel?
Yeah, I think you're pretty bang on there, Gene. I mean, the first things you need to do are deliver value, right? And what that means is you need to communicate your value clearly, before somebody actually signs on the dotted line, right? And then you need to match that expectation in your delivery, in your service, in your process. Customer service is a big part of that, especially when things don't go wrong. I think, don't go right. That's when a lot of people think about customer service. We're thinking about customer service as more of almost a set of guidance. How can we ensure that we can take this walk hand in hand so things never go wrong? It's a more proactive approach, right? And I think if you can kind of solve problems when they crop up, and then you can get folks on the path to success, and your product does sort of what you set expectations to do, you're actually way ahead of your competition in the marketplace, right? Because most people don't kind of do all of those very well. They're kind of wringing the last inch out of expectation setting. They're not doing a great job at service. They're not really helping their customers. So if you can do that pretty well, you can differentiate yourself. And in the differentiation lies the real value, because once your customers see you as a good company who's different from the competition, now they actually want to help you grow. Right? And then you can activate their advocacy. You can turn your promoters into brand ambassadors. Amazing thing happen when your customers are actually happy with your service.
Yes. Now, as we start to land the plane here, we've been talking about operational growth for a company, and we're looking at things that are going on with HubSpot. I would imagine that you have developed some frameworks or some tools inside this that might be able to give someone that's leading a fast growth company some insight. Did something come to mind that you could share with us, Michael?
Yeah. So, I mean, I talked about a flywheel, right, which is kind of a physics device, right? And so let me extend that analogy a little bit more. I think if you want to build a company that operates in the way that we're talking about here, you need basically two things. One, you need an instruction manual for how to build the flywheel, right? And that's a lot of the stuff that we put out on HubSpot Academy from our perspective, right? We put out frameworks and sort of in-depth education about all this stuff. And really, it's the instruction manual. It's the how-to to do this stuff. And it's pretty tactical sometimes, and it goes all the way down how to execute this. And two, you need those tools to build a flywheel, because if you don't have the right tools, you can't build the right thing. And for our tools, that's our software products. And we give a lot of the kind of academy education stuff away for free. And then, of course, we're a software business, so that's what we actually sell. And so when we try to help folks grow and help them make this all happen, we say, look, go get educated, figure out if this is a fit for you, and if it is, then we have the tool set to make it happen. Put the two together. That's where the magic is.
Well, I love the tools that you guys have created. I mean, the content, and one of the best things about what you guys have created, I think I've even shared this with you, is I know for a fact if I signed up for something to get a white paper or to get some kind of some level of access to a report you guys have created, within about 2 to 3 hours, I'm going to get a phone call. Not with the pressure, not with anything other than, hey, did you get it? Did you get a chance to read it? Did you get a chance? What do you think about that? How does that apply to your business? And they're asking me questions, and it happens not once, not twice, every time. You guys, and I guess I'm curious, like, what's the rule that you guys put around this? Like, I know it goes into you're using your own dog food, right? You're using your own system to do it.
Yeah. So I think that actually, to tie this back into the culture conversation, we don't have a rule, right? But what we've done is we've educated our sales force that when somebody comes to the website and they download, an ebook or something, if you don't follow up with them, I think it's within 5 hours, like we showed them a chart of sort of decreasing lead warmth over time. And the sales team is maniacal about that as a result. So what we don't have is managers walking around to reps being like, you've got 20 minutes to make this call. What we have is an incentive structure and a set of knowledge for the reps to do that. And I'm glad to hear that it's actually been helpful. Another one of the things that we've really encouraged them to do is it's not always be closing anymore. It's not Glenn Ross anymore. It's always be helping, right? And really try to get out front and help build a relationship, and through that relationship building, eventually, the sales will come, you'll make your quota, and that's the right way to do it.
So one last question for you, and this really just comes back to some of the research I've been doing, and I love the company. That's one reason why you're here, Michael, is a growth culture where, as a lot of companies are focused on performance, like it's measure the numbers, live up to this, or not. When I say performance culture versus growth culture, what do you think comes to mind is the most important factors for the success of HubSpot?
I think this is actually a super interesting distinction, the performance culture versus growth culture, because a lot of companies say, we got a high performance culture, right? Okay, right? What does it actually mean? And to me, like a culture that's that's centered around performance is a culture, a company and a culture that's centered around hitting goals, getting to 100% attainment, right? I as a rep need to sell this much, so I'm going to do that much, right? I as a service person need to, have this many customer calls, so I'm going to do that much. And typically performance-oriented cultures are pretty quantity-oriented, right? It's like, make this thing happen so
Right.
that the spreadsheet in the sky works. I think the growth-oriented culture, you have goals, right? But it's more about uncapped performance. And so it's not just about like, all right, as a sales rep, I need to hit my number. It's like, how much can I sell, right? In a maximum sense. And there's all sorts of ways to engineer that type of mentality, all sorts of incentive structures that you can use. But I think when you look at your culture in a company, you think about, are people just trying to do what they need to do to keep their jobs and get that next promotion? Or are they really incented and organized to have an uncapped amount of execution, an uncapped amount of upside?
Well, I love that distinction because I think it's something that I've been working with and researching in my own work, and as I work with companies that are growing as fast as you guys have grown and get to the place where you are in your market. Well, I love to wrap this up with if the audience wanted to stay in touch with you, or how would you suggest them actually stay in touch with you or HubSpot?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a product guy nowadays, but I'm a marketer by heart. So you can always find me on LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm happy to kind of have today be the start of a conversation and to have more chats with all you guys off into the future. It would be lovely. If you want to learn more about what HubSpot actually does, you can check out hubspot.com/service. There's a whole lot more right there.
Perfect. Thanks for being here at Leaders in the Trenches.
Thanks so much, Gene. Had a great time.
Fantastic interview, right? Hopefully you enjoy all this content. I enjoy making it. I enjoy connecting with you. I enjoy creating the experience so that you can learn something new. I'm always learning something new when I have on my guest. And then I love sharing the individual hyper-growth tips each Wednesday. So make sure you keep tuning in to Leaders in the Trenches. As always, lead with courage, and I'll see you next time.